So to kick us off this morning, I am very, very pleased to bring to the stage the co-founder and CEO of SoSafe, Dr. Niklas Helleman. So Niklas is an interdisciplinary CEO in addition to... Come on up. They just couldn't wait. So, Niklas is an interdisciplinary CEO. In addition to his management background, he also holds a PhD in psychology, and his psychology perspective led him to quite an interest in the human element when it comes to cybersecurity. So, again, please welcome Niklas.
Thank you, Shannon. Thank you, and also obviously a very warm welcome from my side. I'm super excited, beyond excitement to see so many people here.
Yeah, great. So Niklas, this is the second Human Firewall conference. Can't believe it's already been a year. So why does SoSafe host this conference?
I mean, last year we started this, for the first time because we said, okay, the topic itself is super, super important. So apparently we are increasingly talking about human layer security, about psychology, about technology, but we lacked an event for that. And then also, I think many of us have been to security events, and many of them are great, but some of them might also be a little bit dry. So we said, okay, let's get together and let's create an event that is a little bit more, fresh, modern, and fuses all these various influences of psychology, of technology, of cybersecurity into one event that is informative, but also fun.
Yes. And not only in the last year, but SoSafe's been on quite a journey. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Absolutely. Let's look at the stats first, which I apparently forgot, because last year we started with around 200 people, which was a huge success. And, it was in the same venue. We had a smaller stage over there. But now we boosted up to 1,500 people that are following us in a hybrid mode. So roughly 400 people here over these 2 days, and over 1,200, I think, in the live stream. We have now more stages, more speakers, more talks, and obviously also partners and sponsors. So we're super proud that this apparently has been a success last year, is a success this year. So I think we created a tradition.
Yes, absolutely. And lots has been going on in SoSafe internally as well in that time.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. If you look at that, am I clicking? Yes. It was a very, very, very busy year, a very, very exciting year for us. So last year we started our international expansion. So we are a German company, or we started out as a German company. We are the market leaders in the DACH area, but we started our international expansion in the last year. And we continued also in the last 12 months, opening up our international hubs in London, Amsterdam, and Paris. Then a second German hub in Berlin. We opened up our new headquarters in Cologne-Ehrenfeld, right here around the corner. Some of you saw it on the pre-event last night. We had exactly 1 year ago 3,000 customers and 2 million end users, but essentially this improved. And we launched our human risk review at the beginning of the year, or roughly at the beginning of the year, with so far over 10,000 distributed copies. So this is a massive piece of thought leadership that talks about the risk in human layer security. We opened up our third German hub in Munich, and then very recently onboarding our Chief Product Officer, Gonzalo Gayolas, in Lisbon, which is more or less like a tech and technology hub for us. We continued our success streak with many, many G2 awards. Not going to bore you with that. And then obviously here we are now for the second HufiCon. So a very, very busy year. You could see it here, but I got a lot of makeup. So yeah. Very, very exciting.
All right. Well, then with that, let's jump into the good stuff, the reason why everybody's here. In this first keynote this morning, Niklas is going to be talking about the top trends in cybersecurity with a particular focus on the hottest topic right now, artificial intelligence. So thank you, Niklas.
Thank you, Shannon. And apparently, as Shannon told us, this is the largest gathering of people that are dealing or interested in human layer security. So I'm super, super, super excited that we all made it here, even due to some complexities in the German train system. And this again underlines how important human layer security is. 5 years ago, when we started SoSafe, not everyone was clearly aware of the fact that human layer attacks are so important and are so dangerous. And in times of technological advancement, that will also be the core of my talk now, that we are living now in a time that is characterized of very, very, very fast-paced technological advancements. we feel, and we can see, and I brought some examples here, it always boils down to the humans. So in a time of artificial intelligence, humans, real humans, intelligent humans, become even more important. And maybe you have seen these avatar pictures here and there. So every speaker received a picture like this. I mean, in my case, obviously very, very accurate. So it's interesting because of two aspects. First of all, I mean, you see us here, all of the speakers, as cyber heroes. So this underlines the theme of our Human Firewall conference, which is creating cyber heroes, because we believe it is people that are not the weakest link, but in fact they can be assets, active assets, very important assets in the defense of companies, of organizations. The second interesting aspect of it is, you might have guessed it, these illustrations have been created by the use, or like through the use of artificial intelligence. Not necessarily fully automated, so there was some human creativity and design involved, but the large part of it was being generated by generative AI. And so this is specifically also the topic I want to talk about, that we are living in a time where we will increasingly be using artificial intelligence, but also the dark side is doing that. And if we look at cyber heroes generated by artificial intelligence, it's also interesting because I closed the keynote in the last year with this picture. So you got to see it. So this was DALL-E 2, and you know, now we are all talking about ChatGPT, and it's in the news and it's everywhere. But we have to remember that 1 year ago, exactly 1 year ago, DALL-E 2 was launched and ChatGPT wasn't even there. We still had, I think, GPT-2, and then it was quickly turned public. And DALL-E 2 back then, I was following the whole progress of the technology for a long time. I was very impressed by this output. So this, to me, was like really unbelievable. But you can see here, you know, the lag, and I mean the overall style of it is not very realistic. And this also resembles the entire trend, the entire progress in generative AI. When we also look at other models, for example. This is Midway. They had huge problems in the beginning with depicting real human faces. But it really changed. It really changed very fast. And this is 1 year of progress in generative AI. You can see it's super realistic. And this is not only confined to text, to image generation, but also in the world of text generation. So this is GPT-2 from 2019. And there was a website called Talk to Transformer where you could enter 1 or 2 or 3 words, and then it would generate a text that looked really like a human would have written it. But if you look closer, it didn't make any sense, actually. So there was, I mean, 99% hallucinations in there. But this was 2009. We know that there has been like tremendous innovation. So we now have ChatGPT based on GPT-3 in the beginning. It was limited to a data set that ended somewhere in 21, but now it's also connected to the internet. We have GPT-4 Turbo now, which was just launched, which is super convincing. You can see it here. Also GPT-3, still very simple in the output generated, but now with GPT-4 we are looking at a very convincing output. So an output that really reads like something a human with expertise would have written. And this is awesome, but also this bears the potential for the dark side. And we also know that there's many models now out there. WarmGPT is just one example that can be used for, criminal purposes. So the public and the commercial models are guardrailed, and most likely they can't be used, but with some prompt engineering, they still can be used for spear phishing, for example. But we are looking at leaked open source models that can really, in the hands of attackers, be used for many purposes. I want to talk about those purposes a little bit later. And this is just one of the trends. I quickly want to guide you through, which we identified in our human risk review. So for every human risk review, we talk to experts, we do a survey, we look at our simulation data on our platform, and in the end, we extract 5 to 8 trends. So artificial intelligence, certainly one of the most important trends, and we're going to get back to that in a second. The second two I also want to talk about are evergreen phishing. So phishing, email phishing, still a very, very important, dominant attack channel, but it also spreads to further channels. I want to talk about that in a second. And then a topic that is very, very close to my heart personally as a psychologist. I mean, you all know that very, very, very well. We have a huge talent gap in cybersecurity, over 3 million open jobs currently that can't be filled, and you are constantly under stress, right? Constantly not knowing if you're attacked, and then there is an incident, you have to work on the weekends. We see this as a real, real, real problem. I'm not going to talk about that in my keynote, but we will talk about this in the next 2 days. So this is a topic you will be hearing us talking about a lot. Then we also have to talk about digital supply chains. As software gets more and more interconnected, this will be an increasing problem. Ransomware, still the top monetization model for cybercriminals, so this won't go away. This also was a trend in the last year, and I'm pretty sure that it will be a trend in the next year. Geopolitical crisis, we will be talking about, because this is the underlying foundation driving cybercrime, directly and indirectly. And then also MFA fails, just as an example for the trust in technological barriers. That can be very dangerous. We saw it last year in Uber and Rockstar games that all got hacked, having MFA really implemented in a good fashion, but attackers circumvented it through social engineering. And all of these trends you can deep dive on in our human risk review. If you don't have a copy at home, here's also another QR code, but I think there's also many copies here around. And if we look at the overall view in cyber risk and the threat landscape, then we see a picture that is not very surprising even. So 3 out of 4 companies tell us, or security professionals, maybe some of you also have participated in the survey, tell us that all these trends, geopolitics, AI, and also still remote work, are actually increasing the risk, or they expect the risk to increase over the next years. And if we look at the top attack tactics, no surprise, it's malware and ransomware as vectors, and then phishing as the main social engineering tactic. And if you look at phishing, then every year we look at our simulation data, so the simulated phishing attacks, and this is a fairly stable number we see. So roughly 30% of all end users fall for phishing attacks if it's being done in a simulated way. But even worse, half of them are prone to enter sensitive data into fake login pages, what we call an interaction rate, and that's 50%. So this is super dangerous, right? And we are all here to also improve this picture in all the organizations you are working for. But coming back to the overall trends. So I mentioned geopolitics, and this is something that is very close to my heart. I'm talking about with many experts, or have been talking about in the last couple of months, because it's, I mean, we're looking into the news and there's so many crises out there, right? But these crises have a direct and indirect impact on cybercrime too, and this is the world we're living in. So if we are just looking into the news, there's so many bad news, essentially. We're living in an increasingly fragmented world. I mean, there used to be a pandemic. And this is very interesting for cybercriminals for many, many reasons, right? There's political effects, so cybercrime groups that take one side. We saw it with Conti that worked on the Russian side, but there's also other examples on many sides of the fragmented world nowadays. But it's also interesting because attackers, and especially social engineers, are using all these news to trigger our emotions, because these are very, very strong emotions. It's fear, it's uncertainty. And social engineers know very well that this works very well to attack people. And this is no surprise. We talked to Stéphane Deguin from the Cyber Peace Institute, and obviously this is a very, very, triggering a very strong emotional response if you are reading news about people that need help, that need support. And so it's no surprise that when the Ukraine war broke out, we saw a spike in fake donation pages. So you can also see here, you don't have to expect ethics from attackers, but also a lot of expertise in pushing our buttons. And this is also what Katrin Suda, the former state secretary in the Department of Defense, told us, that this is something that is here to stay. And especially this connection of the emotional triggers. But if we look at emotions, and this is what we always do in our human risk review, it's also other emotions, more positive emotions that are being used. And we are looking at the most successful phishing attacks we are sending around to our 3 million end users. And we see here actually praise, praise and curiosity, helpfulness, they are the top emotions that are most successful for phishing attacks. So this is actually a positive picture, but then it's also authority. So using hierarchies within companies to run phishing themes are working very, very well. And then it's even, if we look at the specific titles and headlines and subjects of the top successful email templates, then we're looking at even more mundane stuff. So there's a damaged car apparently in the parking lot that triggers our curiosity, works very, very well. And the rest actually are all system mails, very boring standard stuff. But it also shows that we are still in a tool environment that we are not too used to. Microsoft Teams has been rolled out in many, many companies, but very recently. So people are not so super used to it. So this works very, very well, sending out system mails. And usually these attacks, and in this case it was email phishing, they are sent out through email as the main channel. But then increasingly we also see additional channels. And if we look at one case that you might have also all read, that is about MGM in Las Vegas. So I think they fixed it now, but for a long time, Las Vegas, or 1/3 of Las Vegas was literally offline. And the hackers or the attackers that attributed themselves to this attack said it was a voice phishing attack. They technically only took 10 minutes in the internal support line to get all the credentials to essentially then encrypt all the systems of MGM. Again, underlining how important it is to look at social engineering, but social engineering that is now increasingly spreading to other channels. And this is also what we see in our report, that email is still the dominant channel, but other channels, social media, LinkedIn, and tools like that are increasingly important. Also, Verizon in their breach report tells us that pre-texting, so using a voice channel to pre-legitimate a following email attack, is actually on the rise. And keep that in mind, because these multi-channel attacks we will be talking about in a second. Going back to AI. So I talked about, or I hinted at rogue models, rogue large language models that are now in the hands of attackers. But this is only one use case. Other use cases we also saw in the news. So deepfakes is a topic that we're talking about for the last couple of years, using for propaganda and disinformation. But there's also commercial cases. So, for example, using voice cloning for attacks. There are few cases, so 2 or 3 cases. One, I think, in the UK, where somebody wired 35 million pounds or US dollars in this case to a fraudster that used voice cloning. So trained a model to the voice of a CEO and then asked for this wire transfer. So these are all use cases that we expect to see increasingly, and this is also what you tell us. 74% tell us that this will increase the cybercrime situation. So we talk about voice, we talk about email phishing, and if we look at email phishing, and this is something we tested internally using and just commercial models, GPT-4 in this case, to craft a spear phishing mail. So to really use personal information to then translate this into a very, very convincing spear phishing email for one target. And what we found out is that this, first of all, already bears a lot of time savings. So it's much faster than if a real social engineer actually does this in a manual way. But then we looked at the success rates, and this is concerning in my point of view. We saw a 64% click rate and an 87% interaction rate. So remember, the average click rate is 30% on our platform, and 50% of an interaction rate. So this is much more convincing, but it also takes less time. So you don't need to have a lot of fantasy to really come up with a model or use case that real attackers will use to really strongly boost their operation and scale their attacks. Which is something, and then if you add multi-channel to the game, so not only doing this via email, But using AI for that is something we thought about 4 years ago. So this is a program snapshot or screenshot of the BSI conference in 2019. So the BSI is a German cybersecurity agency. And we said, okay, we want to talk about this upcoming threat of artificial intelligence in social engineering. And we want to talk about the next wave of phishing through the use of AI. And this was apparently so interesting that I was literally the last person to speak on this congress in the smallest room that was available. So, but back then we engaged with the BSI and they asked us, okay, so when do you expect this to become reality? And we said, I think within the next 2 to 5 years, which we now know is now. And what we talked about was essentially so this is like a research paper, because we did a very theoretical thought experiment. So we said, you might be able at a certain point to train a voice bot on the voice of a CEO, then use a war dialer to call many people in a company, pre-legitimating a following email, and we would expect the click rate then to increase. So describing a multi-channel AI-powered attack. And as I said, back then we expected this to become reality maybe over the next 3 or 4 to 5 years. So this is a theoretical exercise. Because we think that time, turning this into practice, is now. And for that, I'm welcoming my fellow co-founder and inventor at SoSafe, Felix, to the stage.
Hi, Niklas.
Hi.
Hi, Niklas.
I know you're from work. Yeah. So, Felix, at SoSafe, you are looking into the advanced stuff, the hot shit, right? The frontiers of cybersecurity, looking at how attackers could leverage technology to actually run their attacks, right?
Yes.
Good.
Thanks.
And what I described, this theoretical attack using additional channels, right? Then personalizing. This is something that back then we thought that attackers are already or were already doing, right? We had fraudulent call centers that were calling people. We had spear phishing, but only to a very limited number of people. And so this is something they always did. But now we believe this can be done at scale. Why is that?
Yeah, as you know, we at SoSafe, we closely following the progress of AI. And if you pointed out already earlier, in the last 12 months, we saw a huge jump in the availability of language models and services around that. And this changed one thing. Attackers are now be able to scale massively complex social engineering attacks. But let's turn theory into practice and have a look how cybercriminals would take advantage of this and create a scalable phishing attack, so an attack via voice. So first of all, we need to gather some data to create a holistic profile about our target, to later on personalize the attack, to increase credibility and trust. But how can we do that? Fortunately, the internet is offering a wide variety of data, personalized information that are easy, accessible, mostly for everyone. From LinkedIn to other data sources that can be leveraged, like data breaches, social media networks, workplace data, or open source intelligent databases. But before we get some data about our target, actually we need a target, right? Who could that be looking around here? Niklas. I think you would be a perfect
not a good target.
Perfect. So, as we want to use LinkedIn data for this attack demonstration, let's have a look on Niklas' LinkedIn page and check what he has to offer. So, clicking on the profile, he seems to be a psychologist, working at SoSafe, pretty active on LinkedIn. He was former consultant at BCG, good to know. Studied in Bonn and abroad in Hawaii. Cool, that should be enough information to create an attack. Those information can easily be scraped and summarize to an attack profile. In the second step, we use that compiled profile to generate a meaningful attack scenario. For that, we use OpenAI with ChatGPT-4, a prompt asking for generating a social engineering call script, and for sure also the data we just gathered from LinkedIn. After a couple of seconds, we get, as a result, a call script that is fitting to the context of Niklas. In the next step, we will enrich the attack. So, as I pointed out earlier, we will do a vishing attack, so attack via phone. We need to convert the call script into spoken voice. For this, you can use services like 11 Labs. They offer text-to-speech with super realistic voices that you can also tweak in a certain extent. Finally, we need to deliver the attack. As we're doing a vishing attack here, we are using the phone call channel, but as you can see, many other ways are easily available nowadays with services like Twilio. And one side note, for all tools that we used here today are also open source alternatives available. But let's have a look how the attack actually looked like. Niklas, seems you have missed the call, but there's a...
Please click on it.
Hey, Niklas. Alex here from the New York Times. Your rise from BCG to SoSafe's captain, merging psychology and cybersecurity? That's truly innovative. Really impressive. I've been, captivated by your insights on NFT theft and romance scams. We're very eager to feature you in an interview. So, keep an eye on your inbox for my email with some details. And I just saw you're also a Hawaii Pacific University alumni. Crazy, wild, and sunny times we had there, right? Talk to you soon, Niklas. Bye.
So I would totally fall for this, especially as an expert in romance scam. I want to talk about it. No, but this is, I mean, this is super, super convincing, right? So it sounds like an actor, which was something people did in the past, but it's not, right?
No, probably this looked like a bit like semi-manual process, but the scary thing is this all can be fully automated and scaled to infinity, more or less. And exactly that is what we did. We created a small danger lab as part of our product zone where you can experience that on your own. So just flip in your LinkedIn profile and then you will get attacked. So watch out for the black hoodies. Have fun and a great time here at Uficon. Thank you and see you at the lab.
Thank you, Felix.
Goodbye.
So, pretty scary. And really, you can test it yourself. The colleagues in the black hoodies are over there. And this is truly scary because this can be done at the click of a button. And we all know that attackers don't lack creativity. They don't lack the technological means now. So it will be done. So the question is, what can we do? And as I stated in the beginning, apparently we truly believe that now it boils down to people, or comes back to people, because there won't be a silver bullet in technologically recognizing AI attacks, for example. We know that OpenAI has a very hard time even recognizing their own outputs, and then there's so many open source models that we can't expect the technological silver bullet. So we need to empower people more, and we need to tell them, we need to expose them to possible attacks, and this will really, really boost the defense on one layer, essentially creating cyber heroes. And it's also good to hear that you believe that this is a very, very good cause, because we also asked you in the human risk review, what are your top priorities? And amongst the top priorities is still driving employees' security awareness. And this is also what you tell us when we ask you what you want to do with it, also from a budget perspective. So you want to increase or at least stabilize. 9 out of 10 of you tell us want to increase their efforts or stabilize their efforts. And if we asked, so what needs to change, then you are also very specific. You think that we need also to spend to additional channels. We need to make use of communication apps. We need to be much more personalized. We also need to understand our people better. And we also need to customize that to your specific setting in your company. And there's another good news that we found out in our human risk review. You have increasingly allies in the top management. So roughly half of you tell us that the top management is now much more interested in cybersecurity as a topic. I mean, we can all discuss about the reasons for that, but this is good news because we also can see that if the top management is interested in cybersecurity, then also the budgetary situation and the support within the company is tremendously increasing. And this is super important. I said it, cyber heroes, real humans, are a very, very, very important asset within the defense of organizations. And, like driving down risk and preventing is one thing that we do in cybersecurity. But I brought an example that also shows that there's various other risk reduction mechanics using or like empowering people. And you might have read about the case of Reddit. So Reddit received a very, very sophisticated spear phishing attack, and one of the employees actually fell for it, which is bad, but this employee really thought about it and then did one thing. He reached out to the security team. He didn't try to hide it away and, hopefully nobody will know. He contacted the security team, and very, very quickly, the security team and the entire company could investigate, contain the blast radius, so contain the damage, and then Reddit, in this case, also did a very good thing, proactively and very transparently communicated that publicly. So this is also what we believe is another huge layer or huge lever in risk management coming from security awareness, that you are driving essentially a good reporting culture. A good reporting culture turns your employees into sensors, and you will be much faster at spotting that you have been attacked or are under attack. We know that roughly it takes 200 days for companies to actually realize they have been attacked. So this is a key thing that we can learn from Reddit, that empowering people, changing their behavior to be more proactive in also reporting, really, really manages the risk. And as an example from the SOSAFE platform, this translates into our Phish Assist functionality, which is part of our phishing report button, that tells employees in the situation a little bit more about an email they just received, so they can make a more informed choice when reporting an email. And we also saw that this drives down insecure behaviors like not reporting, and also it drives down the interaction rate, actually. So the entering sensitive data into a fake login page is also positively influenced by this functionality. And this is just one of the examples where we need to expand our view in empowering our people to help them change their behavior. And this is our I'm a strong advocate for this mindset shift, which I also talked about last year, that we need to talk about security awareness in a much more holistic way, and not only, like doing this one-time phishing test and, then we have a metric. So we need to think this in a more holistic way. We need to talk about security culture. We need to talk about behavioral change. And then security awareness and training, and I showed the examples, can be a super, super important part of the defense of a company. Essentially, and I'm repeating myself here, turning the weakest link into cyber heroes. And through that, I think we can all, and this is what we want to do here over the next 2 days, engage, collaborate, and learn to essentially turn this picture into this picture and truly empower our people to become cyber heroes. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much, Niklas. So one quick question that we did collect from the Slido from the audience. What do you see as the future of AI in these attacks? Will there be kind of a time in the world where these can be technically identified?
Well, I talked about that briefly in the talk. So currently we don't have that. So we know that OpenAI says they can, roughly identify maybe 20% of the output of ChatGPT themselves, and this is, the creator of it. So I don't see, or I would limit too high hopes to have that in the near future. And then we are talking about watermarking AI output, and I think there's a use case for limiting a little bit disinformation and things like that. So newspapers maybe only taking watermark content. But then there is already like this huge number of open source models in the wild. And I don't see that silver bullet. At least we shouldn't hope for it. We need to work on all the layers.
All right. Thank you very much. Well, before we carry on, I've been told you may have one more surprise for us today.
Absolutely. So, I mean, you talked about that Huficon is a place where we want to get together, we want to collaborate, we want to learn, we want to exchange our views. And we thought, okay, let's not stop here at Huficon, but let's also, extend it essentially into a channel that is pretty hot right now. So we thought, why not take Huficon and launch something new and big? Do we have to click?
I don't know.
This is the Human Firewall Podcast, the only cybersecurity podcast that revolves around the human factor. In a world where our society is increasingly dependent on digital technologies, cyber attacks are more than just a mere threat. Cyber threats are ubiquitous and not only jeopardize security, but also the economic success of companies. The cliché of hackers in hoodies sitting in dark rooms in front of lines of code.
Yeah. Okay. I think it still goes on.
Yeah.
But if I click for so. First of all, I'm very surprised. I heard this trailer last night for the first time. I can't remember recording it.
I think it's because you didn't.
So, you might have guessed it. I don't have this like British Darth Vader dialect. So apparently this was a translation by AI. So we recorded the original thing in German, and the podcast will be in German and English, but technically it doesn't matter because I think pretty soon we will offer it on all the languages translated by AI. And you can see here we already recorded the first episode with Katrin Suder, who is a former state secretary in the Ministry of Defense in Germany. She was part of the team that essentially created that cyber branch in the German military. So we talked about geopolitics and also our defense abilities. But we will record here on Huficon, right over there. There's our studio, more episodes, together with John Noble, with Inge van der Bijl, with Uli Irnig, and also Sascha Lobo. So these are the first guests in our podcast, and obviously this will be super, super exciting.
Excellent. Something for everyone to pre-save for their travel home already then. How about that?
Absolutely. You see another QR code here, but this is a very important one because obviously it hasn't launched yet. So you can subscribe to the waitlist and then immediately you will receive a push message when we launch it. And that will be over the course of the Human Firewall conference.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Niklas. We'll see you on stage in a couple of sessions here for our panel coming up. But thank you.
Thank you very much.